Hello guys, this is Paul McWhorter from TopTechBoy.com, and we are here today with lesson number 66 in our legendary new series of Arduino tutorials. I will need you today to pour yourself a nice huge mug of iced coffee. I will need you to get out your most excellent eLego kit. If you don't have one, there's a link down below. You know, this series of tutorials is using components from this kit. And if we're using the identical hardware, it really makes life a lot easier. What we're going to do in today's lesson is, in lesson number 65, I gave you a homework assignment, and that homework assignment was to create a remote-controlled fan, okay? And leave a comment down below and let me know if you were able to do this homework on your own. It's sort of like, I didn't try at all. I tried, but I could not do it. I tried and I was successful, or I tried and I had some problems, but now I understand it after kind of going through it with you. But what I hope you guys will start doing is I hope that you guys will start being able to do more of these on your own, because if you remember in lesson 65, which I think I can get you to right here on toptechboy.com. In lesson number 65, I left you with a working remote control, and that's kind of where we left things off. And you can see up here a working remote. And then also, if you remember, I believe it was in lesson number 37, we got you going with an Arduino controlled motor. And so if you kind of think you did 65, you got the remote working, you did lesson 37 and you got the motor working, and so really we're kind of bringing together two things that we already understand. And sometimes that's a little harder than it sounds, but I hope you guys were successful in doing that. What will you need for today's build? Well, I will be using the Arduino Nano. Now, I know that the eLego kit comes with the Arduino Uno, but as we start getting to these more complicated builds, I really like going to the Nano. Link down below. If you guys don't have a Nano yet, pick one up, because that is what we are going to be doing. Let's see if we can get our focus back. Okay, there we go. This Arduino Nano is what I'm going to be using for a lot of the more advanced lessons, just because it's so much easier to get a clean build. Also, there's a link down below for some of these straight jumper wires, which allow us to make these nice, neat connections and not end up with the rat nest that we end up with when we try to use these male-to-male jumper wires. And so what you're going to need is you're going to need to get out your Nano. You need the remote control receiver unit from lesson number 65. You need the L293D motor controller. Remember, this looks a lot like the serial register. There's two components in your kit. Make sure that you get the motor controller L293D visual confirmation that you see those letters on it before you plug it in. You would not want to try to run a motor with a shift register. And then you need your power supply, okay? And you need your motor with the fan. And you can get these things out of your kit. Okay, so let's see. Let's come in and just make sure where we left off in lesson number 65. We left you, and let's see if I can call this up where I can see it well. Okay, we left you with this program. And again, if you haven't done lesson 65 yet, you really need to go back and see lesson 65. And so with the remote control, what we did was we mapped the buttons to commands in the Arduino. So I'm going to press 0, I get 0. Also notice when I press the button, when you look down here, you see that it receives the signal. And then of course I lose my focus because I put my finger in there. I am really going to try to, I'm sorry you guys, this is slowing you down, but I really want you to be able to see clearly, so I've got to kind of help it with the focus. Okay, now notice when I press the button 1, you'll see the little red light blink, okay, and then it receives the command 1, or the power button, it receives the command PWR. So you can see that from lesson 65, we have you where we can map any one of the buttons on here to a string command. And so that's really, really good. So what do we need to do now? Well, we need to hook the motor up. And how do we hook the motor up? We go back to lesson number 37, and if you go to toptechboy.com, lesson number 37, you can see this bond out. All right, there's a little bit of bookkeeping that I need to do here, okay, and a little bit of things that we need to adjust before moving on. And so I am going to give you a nice big overhead view of our situation. And you remember earlier on in lesson number 65, we were running the remote off of the 5 volts coming off of the Arduino. And so the way we did that is on the Arduino at the 5-volt pin, we came and connected that to our power rail, and then our power rail on the top, we jumpered down through this red wire onto the power rail on the second to the bottom row. All right, now the thing is, because we're going to add a motor, we need to add a DC 5-volt supply here. So we don't want to be trying to get 5 volts off of the Arduino and get 5 volts off of the power supply at the same time. And so what we are going to do is we are not going to be jumpering the 5 volts off of the Arduino. So the Arduino now is no longer powering the remote, and the Arduino will not power the motor controller, and the Arduino will not power the fan. What we will do is we will power all of those things from this motor controller. Now, what we will do is we will continue to power the Arduino through the USB. Now, I should give you a warning at this point. What I am showing you how to do is safe and effective and won't damage anything for the L293D motor controller running a little DC motor that came with the kit, and then powering the remote, the motor controller, and the motor from this power supply. Now, these things are made to work together, but you can't go out and get a huge motor and try to run it off of this little chip. Or you can't get a motor that's bigger that's suitable for this chip, but is more current required than what can be supplied here. So I cannot teach you in today's lesson how to get every single motor working with every single motor controller working with every single power supply. That is something that if you start moving away from the components I'm showing you, you have to look at the wattage ratings of the motor and the motor controller and the DC power supply, and you have to then also look at the current draw of the motor, the current producing capability of the L293D, and how much current the power supply can give. So you have to really think about those things. So you can just do what I'm doing here for these components, but if you change the components, you've got to take all those things into account. All right, so let's start this build. So we've disconnected from the Arduino, and therefore we got to make sure that we are powering the remote, and the remote is powered through the center pin, which is labeled R on this one. So I need to get power to R, and so I am going to come down and I will, let's see, I will look at R and I will make sure that it is connected to this lower power rail. Okay, it was. And now what I will just have to do is make sure that this is connected to the motor controller, to the power supply. All right, now one thing that is very, very good practice is if you look, you can see, and hopefully I can get focus, you can see that the pins coming off of this power supply are labeled plus and minus. Okay. Do you see that? Plus and minus. And this one is over here is plus and minus. You want to make sure that these labels match the labels on the rails of the breadboard that you're using. Now, you could do it backwards, and as long as you did the bookkeeping, you can make it work. But if these labels don't match these labels before your build is over, it is going to be very likely that you plug the wrong thing in. So make your labels match. So right now, it would be much more natural for me to plug things in this direction and then my power could come from over here. But the problem if I do that is then I am not lined up with my labels. So I want to do it like this way, and then the labels on the pins on the power supply are going to match the labels on the breadboard. So I'm going to plug it in like this, okay? And now I'm going to check. I am always going to check these things, and what I see here is plus goes to plus, minus goes to minus, and then down here, plus is in plus, and minus is in minus. All right, the one other thing that I want to make sure of is that this power supply can put out 3.3 volts or 5 volts. You can see that I have the jumper over on the 5 volts on that rail, and on here I've got the jumper connected to 5 volts. And if you have it hooked the other way, you are going to get 3 volts out, 3.3 volts, and this whole thing is going to turn into a mess. All right, so I've got the power supply connected, and so now I should be powering the remote, and the remote should be powered from this power supply. I have not plugged the power supply in yet, and in fact, even on the Arduino, I'm going to unplug it because I don't like doing these builds with the Arduino plugged in, because if you get something hooked up wrong, you can cause some damage. So I want to get everything hooked up, and then I will come back. Okay, so the remote is connected properly now because I've activated these rails with the power supply. So I think on the remote side, I think things will be good. Now we need to go and we need to look at that pin out. And again, you can get the pin out for the motor on lesson number 37, Arduino tutorial 37 on toptechboy.com. And you can get a nice big one, but as I'm building here, I'm going to put it up there. Okay, and if you can't see that, open up toptechboy.com, go to Arduino tutorial number 37. So let's see what I need to do here. First thing I want to do is I want to start hooking up the motor controller. And so let me see what I need to do here. All right, and I am going to try very, very hard to keep this in focus and where you can see it. And so don't get impatient with me if I take a second to try to get things focused, because I want you to see my build as carefully as possible. And if you're bored with me and you just can't stand this anymore, just look at the bond diagram and then skip part of this video and come back as we start coding a little bit later. Okay, so I think what I will start with is I will start with power and ground. Okay, and if you look at the bond diagram up there, the pin out, what you can see is that pin 8 goes to power. And so this is the rightmost pin. And so that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The rightmost pin at the bottom needs to go to 5 volts. And so I'm going to get one of my small jumper wires, and I'm going to be very careful, and I'm going to put pin 8, that's the rightmost pin on the bottom, and I'm going to give that 5 volts. All right. So now after I do it, I want to check. Okay, I look at the pin out. It says that pin 8 needs to go to 5 volts. I see that this is 5 volts. It goes to pin 8. It looks like pin 4 goes to ground. So that would be pin 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pin 4 goes to ground. And I am going to go back and redo this with a smaller wire. I was not paying attention there. And so I'm going to go pin 8 to 5 volts with the small wire. And now I'll use the slightly larger wire to go, what did we say, pin 1, 2, 3, 4? Pin 1, 2, 3, 4. Pin 1, 2, 3, 4 will go to ground. Okay, like that. Now I'm going to go back and I'm going to check it. It's easier to check as you go. So I'm going to put pin 1, 2, 3, 4. Pin 1, 2, 3, 4. Pin 4 goes to ground, and that looks pretty darn good. I think I can come up to this view and you'll still be able to see what I'm doing. All right. Okay, so now I've got power and I've got ground. Now I need to set up that speed pin. Speed pin, I believe, is pin 1. And okay, let's see. Let me check and make sure that that is correct. The speed pin is pin 1 here. And that pin 1 needs to go to pin 5 on the Arduino. So pin 1 on the motor controller needs to go to pin 5 on the Arduino. And I believe what that is I believe that is our speed pin. And so let's see, I should find a wire that goes naturally. Okay, and I think this one is going to go very, very nicely. So pin 1 on the motor controller goes to pin 5 on the Arduino. And you see I've got a nice, neat connection there. Okay, and you got some pretty good focus. All right, what do I have now? I have pin 2 on the motor controller. Pin 2 on the motor controller goes to pin 4 on the Arduino. So pin 2 on the motor controller goes to pin 4 on the Arduino. And do you remember that was that direction control, that first direction control, that there's 2 direction controls? And that first one, the first direction control, is pin 2 on the motor controller. That goes to pin 4 on the Arduino. You're following along up there. Okay. Now I think we need one more, and that is pin 7 on the motor controller. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 from the left, 1 from the right. 7 from the left, 1 from the right. That needs to go to pin 3 on the Arduino. So I'm going to come here, pin 7. Pin 7 on the motor controller is going to come to pin 3 on the Arduino. Okay, so I believe that I have that connected up. So now let's come back up here and let's think. All right, I've got power, and I've got power, and I've got this, and I've got the motor speed, and I've got the 2 direction pins, and I've got ground, and everything set up. So I think that is pretty darn good. Now what we need to do is we need to come in and make sure that we have set up. We've got to actually plug the motor in. And what I can see is that the red wire from the motor goes to pin 3 of the motor controller. So red wire on the motor goes to pin 3, 1, 2, 3. All right. And then the other wire of the motor, it looks like, is going to go to pin 6. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, like that. So I think that that is hooked up. Now what I want to do is I want to see if I can kind of get this to stick down so I can stand it up. I've got a little piece of pookie. It's like caulk. I'm going to make a little ring. And remember that you don't want to get the motor shaft. You don't want to get the motor shaft plugged down in the pookie. So I make a little ring, and I'm going to put that here like this. Okay. And now hopefully I can plug this down on there without getting any gooey on the shaft, because that spinning shaft is sticking out there, and you wouldn't want to get anything gooey on that, because if you did, it would make it not want to run well. And these little motors are a little hard to keep running. Have any of you guys knocked the red or black wire off yet? If you haven't, it's just a matter of time, and you probably will. All right, so now I believe I have the whole thing set up, and so let's go back to this view. And now I think that I am going to go ahead and I'm going to plug this in. Okay, and so now I plug that in. And now I'm going to turn it on, and I would expect nothing to happen. Okay, well, I get some happy little lights, but I'm kind of worried that my happy little light is staying on. Let's see, I've got red to positive. Okay, I have ground, G to ground. I've got the Arduino grounded, so everything is sharing a common ground. And so I do not know why that little light is staying on, but I don't like that very much. And then the control line on the little module, the control line is going to pin 9. And that's maybe one thing I should just check and make sure. Yeah, it looks like that should be. And so I do not know why we are seeing what we're seeing here. But let's come back and let's look at the code that we ended up with on lesson number 65. All right, so what you can do is you can go back to toptechboy.com and you can get the code. So let me go to a view that would show that. Okay, so we are going to go back to lesson number 65, and you've got your remote hooked up, and now you can get this code and you can put it in your Arduino, and then we will come back over here to a code view. Okay, and let's see if you can see everything there. All right, so let me see if the remote still works just with the other things that we've done here, because I'm not real happy with why that little light's staying on. But I have this code, which is the code from lesson number 65, and now we will download that, and it is not happy. Oh, what did we forget? We forgot to plug the Arduino back in. Maybe that would explain some of this. All right, okay, so what do we see now? You know how I was worried about why the little red light was on? Look now, when we put power back on the Arduino, it went off. So did you guys catch that I'd not powered the Arduino up with the USB cable? Okay, so now everything has power. And so what I want to do is I want you to be looking at the serial monitor. Okay, and I'm going to call that up here. Let's call it up here. Okay, hopefully this is going to work and you can see it. But now we got to download, so I'm going to download. It's looking happy. Okay, where are we now? We're exactly where we left off in lesson number 65, but we've added the motor controller, and the power supply. But before I start coding, I want to just see, if the remote still works. So I'm going to hit the power button and then be watching the serial monitor. So I hit power, and you cannot see the serial monitor, so I apologize. Let me fix that. This beyond the scope of what I can really talk about here, but it's easy for this to get lost, and so I need to fix this really quick for you here. Okay, where you can see what I'm seeing. Okay, now you can see what I am seeing. Very nice. All right, so now let's check and make sure the remote is still working. So I'm going to press 0. Okay, and when I press 0, you get a 0. When I press 1, you get a 1. Okay, so the good news is that the little remote is still working. We've mapped the buttons on the remote to functions in the Arduino. And so now what we want to do is we want to start coding and seeing if we can add the motor back in. Well, you can go back and watch lesson number 37 if you want to know how to get that motor working, or you can just kind of follow along here with me. And I'm going to move all of this and try to keep a view where you can see that things are in focus and that you can also watch me code. Okay, so what do we need to do in order to add the motor back in? Well, we've got some more pins that we are going to control, and so we need to do those things. So let's come down after, I'm going to come down after my variables that I did for the remote, and now I'm going to put in the variables for the motor. Well, what do we need? We have an int and we need speed pin. So that's that pin 1, which connected to pin 1 on the motor controller, which connected to pin 5 on the Arduino. And so we need to tell that that is pin 5 on the Arduino. And remember, you're telling it not the pin on the motor controller, you're telling it the Arduino pin. Speed pin on the motor controller is connected to pin 5 on the Arduino. Then we had those 2 direction pins, and those were dir1, direction 1 on the motor controller was connected to pin 4 on the Arduino. Int dir2 on the motor controller. Int dir2 on the motor controller was connected to pin 3, I do believe. Okay, pin 3, I do believe. All right, now we also had the motor speed. So we're just going to call that mSpeed, and we're going to set that to 255 full blast. All right. That seems to make very good sense. Now in the void setup, we're going to have to do some more pin modes. So we're going to leave the 2 things that we did from the earlier lesson, and we're going to add some pin modes. What pin did we add? We added speed pin, and that is an output. We will be sending data to it. We have pin mode, and then we have dir1, which is an output. Then we have pin mode dir2, which is an output. Okay. And I think that's pretty good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to set an initial direction for the motor just to make sure that we're starting in a known direction. So I'm going to say digital right, and so I'm going to say dir1 is high and digital right dir2 is low. And how many semicolons have I forgotten already this early in the morning? Looks like I did pretty good up there, huh? Okay, so that should have it ready to roll. Now the first thing it's going to do is just sit and wait for the IR command. And so it's sitting and waiting for you to press a button on the remote. And then when you press it, it's going to look at the value and map those confusing hexadecimal values that you get from the remote and change them into more intuitive things like 0, 1, or power, or things like that. So all that's taken care of. Now when we get to this point, what we're ready to do is we're ready to do something with the motor. Now before I try to map all these different buttons onto functions, I just want to make sure that the motor runs. And so what is the simplest way for me to just turn the motor on? So I'm going to get a command from the remote, but at first I'm not going to do anything. I just want to make sure that our connections are good. So I'm going to do a digital right, and I'm going to do a dir1 low. And it doesn't matter dir1 or dir2. One's got to be high and the other's got to be low. Okay, one's got to be high and the other one's got to be low. And then if you make it the opposite, it will go in the opposite direction. Since I made dir1 high, I'll make dir2 low. Okay, and now I'm going to say analog right. What do I want to write to? I want to write to speed pin, and I'm going to just set it full on 255. Okay, 255. All right, like that. Okay, and then I think I'll put a delay. I don't know, did I put a delay up at the top? If I put a delay up at the top, I don't want to put another one here. Okay, I have a delay up here. So I don't think I really want a delay down at the bottom here because I've already got a delay at the top. Okay, so what do we expect to happen when I turn this on? Well, it shouldn't do anything initially because it's going to be sitting here waiting for some signal from the remote. Then as soon as it gets any signal from the remote, it doesn't matter which one, it should just turn the motor on, right? Just trying to see if we have it hooked up before we, it's kind of like check as you go, and that way you don't end up with something really complicated. And if it doesn't work, then you don't know, you might have wired it up wrong, you might have coded it wrong, your motor might not be working. There's so many things. If I can just get the motor to turn on, I will know then that my connections are right. And then if my connections are right, then I can go in and start trying to map different things, like do different useful things as I press buttons. And so let's hold our breath. Oh, denied. What did did you guys see that? I said Sigital right. Okay, please, everyone, hold your breath this time. Oh, it's gonna. Oh, it's taking so. Boom, it downloaded anyway. Okay, so we don't know if it works yet or not, but what we are going to do is we are going to see if we can get it to work. So what do we expect? If I press any button, the fan should turn on. So just for fun, I'm going to press power, and then hopefully over on the digital monitor you will see power. It will recognize that I pressed the PWR button. Okay, so let's try that. You see, we're ready to go. Hold your breath. Okay, it saw PWR, but the motor did not come on. Okay, the motor did not come on. So let's see. Speed pin. That looks good. All right, so let's see if the motor is hooked up correctly. I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Motor does look like it's hooked up correctly. Okay, and I'm getting absolutely nothing. Is this turned on? Yes, that's turned on. Okay, this is peculiar. So what am I going to do? I'm going to just see if the motor works, and the way I'm going to see that is I'm just going to hook the motor into the power supply directly and see if I'm getting power and see if the motor works. Okay, do you see if I just hook this to the, not the Arduino power supply, you wouldn't want to do that, but I'm hooking it just to this little power supply, and that does in fact look like it works. And so now I'm going to go back up to the motor controller, and so I'm going to go pin 6 and pin 3. Okay, so let's see. Oh, did you see what I did here? I put both of these things low. Did you guys catch that? That could very well be causing my problem there. Did you guys catch that? Okay, one low and one high. Okay, let's try downloading again. And let me see if I can get a good focus for you. Okay, that looks pretty good. We will download. Now what we expect is on the download, we don't expect anything to happen. We are watching and it is downloading. Okay, it has downloaded. Now I'm going to press PWR, and this time I expect it to come on. Boom! We turned it on. Okay, that's actually kind of lame because it's just, I can't even turn it off, right? All I could do was just turn it on. Okay, so let's see. What would be another thing? All right, let's say let's put an off button in there. That would be the next thing to do. So what I want to do is I want to start putting if statements in here. All right, so if it's PWR, so if, and then let's see, the variable that we were using was my command. So if my command equal the string PWR, then what do I want to do? I want to do just what I just did. I want to turn it on in the forward direction. Okay, so let me get rid of that. Now let's see if we can turn it off. Well, off would be very similar, so I'm going to take all this. Okay. Now, what is the command that I want? Well, you see that little button that says, let's have the off be this button that says function stop. So I need to know what button that does, and so I'm going to come over here, look at the serial monitor, and I'm going to point that, I'm going to press that button and see what the command comes out to be. Okay, now one thing that I'm noticing is I press this remote now, it is no longer working. Okay, this thing is no longer working. So what I suspect has happened is that we're getting some noise. Now this is stopped, so let me try it again. Okay, I'll try to make real clear what is going on. If it's just sitting there and nothing happens, this works. All right, so I'm going to unplug the motor and I'm going to test the remote. So if I press PWR, I get a, well, I pressed rewind by accident, but I'm going to press PWR. Okay, and I get a PWR. If I press function stop, I get a function. Okay, if I press 0, I get a 0. So that is working. But look what happens when I plug the motor in. It's going to work the first time. Let me clear the output. It's going to work the first time. I'm going to press PWR. Okay. And it gets the PWR. And now it doesn't even turn on anymore. So let's see what happened there. Okay, it seems like for some reason it's got like a really low speed, or it's not wanting to turn on. Okay, little concern with my motor here because that I kind of had to help it turn on. Trying to look and see. It looks like, okay, things look pretty good. All right, so that worked. But now watch, if I try to press the other button now, I press the other button and it's not picking it up. Okay, once the motor turns on, the remote breaks. What could be going on? The motor generates a lot of electrical noise. Okay, it generates a lot of electrical noise, a lot of static. It's almost like a little radio station broadcasting nonsense everywhere. And some of these components can be sensitive, and then they can't hear what's going on because there's so much noise from the motor running. There's kind of two ways that you would do this, and really the best way would be to come in and start putting some small capacitors across these motor pins and try to filter out that noise. But since the eLego kit and the things that you bought so far don't have capacitors, what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to power the remote off of the Arduino rather than powering the remote off of the power supply. And I think I could probably get cleaner power for the remote off of the Arduino and not share a power supply. And so what would I need to do in order to do that? Well, I need to turn the power off to the remote. Okay, so you see the remote here. This one that goes to plus, that is the center wire. I'm going to take that out. And then I'm going to connect that center wire on the remote, center wire on the remote. Okay, it's labeled R, and I'm going to take that around to the positive 5 voltage on the Arduino. Okay, and I'm going to try to get that all down in there neat where everything is plugged in. Okay, not as neat as I would like, but now to just be painfully clear, that center R pin on the remote, I did not want to power from the power supply. I bring it over to 5 volts on the Arduino. Okay, and now okay, so now the fan turned back on. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to reset it and see if I can turn it on. Okay, so I reset it. It's sitting there like we would expect. Now, when I press PWR, I expect PWR to come on. I expect the motor to come on. Okay, happy little red blink. It saw PWR. The motor came on. So far, so good. Okay, now the question is, by powering the remote off the Arduino, can I get new signals now while the motor is running? So I'm going to try the stop button. So I press stop, and I did not get it. Let's make sure that that is tied in good. Ground is ground. I'm tied to 5 volts. All right, let me turn the motor off again, turn it back on. Okay, so let's try this again. So, gonna reset it to stop everything. Okay, you guys understand what we're doing? We have a noise problem here, and I'm trying to get it worked out. I'm trying to get it worked out where I'm powering the remote off of a different power supply, the one coming off of the Arduino, and then we should see it work. All right, it got a power signal, which I must have accidentally pressed. So I'm going to reset it again. Okay, now I will deliberately press PWR this time. Okay, it saw the PWR and the motor came on. Now the question is, if I hit stop, will it see that signal this time? And it does not see it. Okay, so this is still moving. That wire did not get rid of the noise problem, because once the motor works, it doesn't work. One thing I notice is I have this wire from the motor very close to this power supply wire. And so what I want to do is I want to unplug the motor, and let me go to a clearer overhead view here. Okay, so I've unplugged the motor. I'm going to kind of twist these leads together, because that will suppress a little of the noise. You see how I'm going to try to kind of weave them? That can suppress some of the noise. Again, best way to do this is with capacitors. Okay, but now I will plug the red wire back to pin 3 on the motor controller. 1, 2, 3, make sure I get it in the right one, and the black one into pin 6, like that. Okay, so now with my remote, okay, you got pretty good focus there. Let me come back and see, give you a view where you can see the function coming off of there. I think I can make that a little smaller, like that. Okay, and you got focus. Okay, now let's see, with it running, if I press the function button, if you'll see the function come up. I'll clear this off. Okay, so press function, got function. Press power, got power. Press function. Okay, so do you see that it wasn't enough to just power the remote off the Arduino? I needed to get these wires away from that power wire, but it does seem to be working very nicely now. And so now let's come in and let's come back to our code view. Okay, this is a pretty good view, don't you think? So we'll come back to our code view, and what we will do is we are going to Now add a second if statement. So this time, and remember I already copied and pasted it. So if my com is equal to fun, F-U-N, function, what do I want to do? I want to set the speed to 0. Okay, I want to set the speed to 0. All right. So now, what do we want to do? Well, we want to be able to change directions. So now what I'm going to say here is I've got the fast forward and I've got the reverse. So let's think of what we could do here. I could say if my com equals, and let's say fast forward, what do we want to do there? Well, what we would do is we would say digital write dir1 is low, digital write dir2 is high, putting in my semicolons. Okay, and now motor speed, we're not going to do anything with motor speed. All this is going to do is set the direction. And then I'm going to analog write speed pin and whatever motor speed is, because I'm not going to change motor speed. I'm just going to change direction. So this is going to stay motor speed. Okay. So fast forward is going to do that. Well, what is reverse going to do? Okay. The rewind button. Okay. You see that backwards button? That's REV, I believe. In fact, let's see if I can actually read it by pressing it. Okay, REW. So if my com is equal to REW, what should I do? I don't want to change speed. All I want to do is change direction. So I would make that high, dir1 high, and dir2 low. All right. Now, based on this, I should be able to turn it on. I should be able to turn it off. I should be able to make it go forward, and I should make it go backwards. So let's try that. Okay. Starts off. What do I want to do? I want to press the power button. Well, after I let it download. Okay, press the power button. You saw the happy little red light. Boom, it turned on. Okay, did you see that? Now let's see if we can turn it off with the function stop button. Boom, we can turn it on. We can turn it off. I'm getting a little warm. I think I'll turn my fan on. Boom. Ooh, much too cold. I'm going to turn it off. Function. Boom. Did you see that? We've got an on-off switch on here. Okay. Now let's see if I can change direction. So I'm going to turn it on. Okay. And it looks like it's going counterclockwise. And if I do fast forward, it stays counterclockwise. Now let's do rewind. It stops. And it is indeed going clockwise. Okay, so we have on, off, and we have motor direction going. Now what do we want to do? Well, I think what we want to do is if I go the up button, I want to make it go faster, and if I go the down button, I need to go slower. So I don't remember where we mapped those things, but I'm going to look at the up button. Okay, if I put the up button, it says up. If I put the down button, it says DN. So those are the two things that I want to clue on. All right. So now what I need to do is I need to do a if my com equals up, what do I want to do? I want to change my speed. My speed equal my speed plus, let's say, from 0 to 255, 0 to 255, probably it starts running about 120. So I'm going to put like jumps of about 15 each. Okay. And so that should speed it up. Okay. But then what I need to say is I need to make sure if my speed is greater than 255. So if that messes me up and puts me above 255, what do I need to do? Well, I need to say my speed equal 255. So I just want to make sure that I don't try to write a value greater than 255. So if I'm sitting there hitting that up button, if it takes it above 255, this will take it back to 255. Okay, so I shouldn't have done that. I should do it like that. All right. And similarly, okay, so that should be all of this nonsense. So here we will come and we will do the same thing, copy and paste, but this time if my com is equal to dn, my speed would be my speed what? Minus 15. And if my speed is less than 0, then make my speed 0. All right, now what we need to do is within these, we've got to make sure that we do those analog right so that we actually put that value in there. Okay, so here we would come and in the if statement, we want to go ahead and write that value. And then here, I want to write that value. So now within those if statements, when the speed changes, you actually write it. Let's see if this crazy thing is going to work. Oh, what is this nonsense? My speed is, I'm sure, oh, M speed, I'm sorry. M speed instead of my speed, M speed. That should be good. So let's download it. Did it in 2 places. Okay, fix that. All right, it's going to work. So I did it 2 different places. That's a problem with copying and pasting before you have checked your code. Okay, let's try that. This was just a, how many times did I say that? M speed, M speed, M speed, M speed. All right. Okay, I guess it wants the conditional inside of a parentheses. Guys, I do so many different programming languages, I sometimes forget what different ones want. I'm sure it's the same here, that in this if statement, it wants the conditional inside of parentheses. All right, let's try that. Looks like it's going to be happy this time. Okay, first thing we want to do is we're going to turn it on. Okay, I'm going to press PWR. You should see PWR up here. Boom! I turned it on. Okay, I think you can see it better if I come over here. Okay, now I'm going to press stop to turn it off, function stop. Okay. Boom! I turned it off. You see the commands are coming up properly. Now what do I want to do? I want to turn it on. Okay. Now I want to reverse direction, so I'm going to go the rewind. If I do rewind, let's see, rewind. It is not seeing my rewind button. Okay, yeah, so now that changed direction. And now I'm going to do the fast forward. and it does fast forward. I want to try rewind again. All right, so the direction is going. Now you're asking why is counterclockwise forward? Because I'm a math teacher, and right, when you go counterclockwise, that's a positive angle. So I kind of do it the way math people do it. Most people want to think of clockwise as positive, but not me. Okay, so that is working. Now what do we want to do? We want to see if we can slow it down with the down button. So if I put slow, okay, let's try it. All right, it got the down. Did you hear it? It slowed down a little bit. Okay, I did another one. It's slowing down. Oh, this is working beautifully. Okay. Let me try again. Oh my, this is really, really, really working good. Okay, with it slow like this now, let me see if I can change the direction. I got to kind of see it's going clockwise. So I'm going to try to make it go counterclockwise. Okay, still going the right direction. I'm going to see if I can slow it down again. Okay, you see that D in? Let's go again. What I wish here, I can see it slowing down. What I wish I'd done is I wish I'd put a print on M speed in there. Okay, now I'm going to change direction. It is presently going counterclockwise, and so I'm going to go fast forward. It sees the fast forward. Okay, I'm going to go reverse. Sees the reverse and it changes direction. Fast forward should change it again. All right, man, do you see this working? Okay, let's see if the speed up button works. And so let me clear this so that you can see what I'm doing. Okay, now I'm going to see if I can speed it back up by going up. So I hit up. I can detect it going faster. I hit up again. I can detect it going up. Oh, wonderful. Okay, let's throw in a speed change. Boom. Okay. Guys, do you see what we just did? Do you see what we just did? We are controlling, using our remote control, we are controlling the on-offness of our fan. We are controlling the forward-backward of our fan, and we are controlling the speed of our fan. Okay, man, I think this has been just a really nice lesson. Remember, if you do this with real motors, you've got to go in and do the power calculations. You got to calculate the current. You got to think of thermal properties. You got to think about heat sinks and things like this. But as far as the coding and the connections, you can see that it's pretty easy to do this project where we are controlling the speed, direction, and on-offness of the motor. Okay. Your homework today is going to be to go in and this up and down just make it go faster and slower from wherever it is. I want you to add speed controls with the 0 to 9, where 0 would turn it off and then 9 would have it at full speed, and then kind of have it in between for the in-between ones. But you don't want to think, okay, I'll divide 255 by 10 and each one will go 25, because you know that if you press 1 and have a motor speed of 25, it's not going to run. You've got to be at least 100 or 120 for it to run. So 0 should be 0. 1 should be somewhere around 120. And then from 1 to 9, you want to scale from 120 to 255. Hint, might be a really good place to use use an equation of the line, which I've kind of showed you before. All right, guys, this has been kind of a fun little project for me. I hope you learned something from it. If you got this, guys, tell me, are you doing these projects? Okay, are you actually doing the projects? Are you having success? Could you do it on your own? Did you have problems when you did it on your own and only got it working after you watched me do it? Give me some feedback. How are these things? these things going. Okay, you've got your homework. This has been lesson number 66. You've got your homework. I am not going to go in and do that one for you. You're just going to have to do that one on your own. And so in lesson 67, we will be moving on to new and exciting things. Paul McWhorter from TopTechBoy.com. If you guys like this, think about giving us a thumbs up. Think about subscribing to the channel. Make sure you ring that little bell so that you will get notifications of future videos. And then think about sharing this with other people. Man, it's like, just a couple of bucks, you get the components you want. And at least I'm having a lot of fun with this. Okay, Paul McWhorter from TopTechBoy.com. I will talk to you guys later.